Burkhardt. He said, how much overhead squat volume do you typically program? How to tell if overhead strength is a limiting factor for snatch. So for weightlifters on a normal program starting off, they have no overhead squat volume programmed. That variation wouldn't really be something we typically program into any of our weightlifting blocks. In certain cases, the snatch complex, where you might have a snatch plus an overhead squat or a snatch balance plus an overhead squat, could certainly be used. In those cases, a frequency of about 1 or 2 times a week is about all we would do, and total volume will probably be 5, 6, 7 sets of kind of 2 or 3 reps. So it's never excessive. The one program where you might see a bit more of it than in other programs will be the weak overhead program. Even in that case, it's not a standalone overhead squat we'd be using. It will be adding in an overhead squat as part of a snatch complex or a push press behind the neck complex or a whatever it is. It's very, very rarely programmed in the same way we program a back squat or a front squat or anything like that. The reasons for that, there's like a few of them. The first and most important reason, though, is if we start fatiguing ourselves with an overhead squat. So say if I was doing a 5x5 progression or a 5x3 progression from week to week with an overhead squat, I'm going to really, really sacrifice a lot of my recovery capital that I'll need for the snatch and for the jerk as well. So by building this strength and by pushing my overhead squat, I'm really going to be pulling back from my ability to do my snatches and my jerks during the week, which are the number one priority. Like your snatch, clean and jerk are the only things that really matter. So to be sacrificing that with something like an overhead squat doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, the overhead squat is rarely an issue of strength. So you have usually weak shoulders or poor mobility in the shoulders. Neither of those need to be trained with an overhead squat. Something like a strict press behind the neck, push press behind the neck, snatch, balance, SOTS press, all of these things can train that with much less load than you would use for an overhead squat. And the other thing as well is that if I start doing overhead squats, I'm going to be pulling away total time from squatting. So it's just, for multiple reasons, overhead squats aren't really pushed too hard in our programs.
The other part you said, how do you know if strength is a limiting factor for a snatch or overhead strength? If you can't snatch balance at least your best snatch, it's definitely an issue. Preferably you'd be able to do something like 15 kilos more, or maybe like 10% more than your best snatch pretty comfortably. Beyond that, then it's absolutely no use. If it looks like you're weak overhead, if you look unstable, if you feel unstable, then it's very likely an issue. You'll know if it's an issue, and that's kind of an annoying answer, but you'll know if your overhead is an issue. It'll be very, very apparent to you. It'll be like weak legs are an issue. It'll be very, very apparent.
I think definitely 10 to 15% is a number you can kind of stick to for the rest of your training, and it'll work.